Hi Shelly. I wanted to do a quick video for you just because for me sometimes it's easier if I hear something or if I watch a tutorial or listen to somebody explain things to me versus if I try to read their explanation. Sometimes I feel like it's harder to I guess get a point across, or to be a little bit easier to convey when you try to type it versus if I listen or somebody explains it to me. So I wanted to just do a quick video to go over a few of the points that you had brought up in your post on Facebook. To hopefully it's a little helpful. Or after I do the video, I'll go back and kind of see if I did 100% hit some of those points, things like that. But at least hopefully I can cover one or two now, and then a few and maybe in another video. But so the reason why I wanted to do this video is because also visually I can show you some things versus just trying to explain them. So and I'm only pointing to this wall. Pretend this is your wall. So from what I can understand in your pictures, your setup is you're hanging your clothes basically on the wall, which is fine. None of this is going to be like a right or wrong or anything like that. I'm just going to explain essentially what happens with photography and why you have shadows now and things like that. So this is really just photography, not something as specific as saying like that wall or something like that. So you have your stuff hanging on the wall. So, and you said that you started, as soon as you took out these lights, all these shadows in your photographs look worse. First thing to keep in mind is photography is essentially the recording of light. So it's when we had film and you captured light on the film, same with digital. At a basic level, the more light you have in the scene, or say on a subject, the better the photos are going to come out quality-wise. And specifically, you'll notice if you look at photographs, maybe if you try taking a picture of those clothes hanging on that wall with your phone in the same spot with those lights off and just the ceiling lights, and then leave the phone in the same spot and then turn those lights on, you're going to create shadows with those lights. But at the same time, you'll notice that the photographs, at least detail-wise, will be clearer, or there'll be less of what we call noise in the photograph. When you're just kind of, maybe if you'll see in the photos with the lights being off, and you're just kind of using the room light, you won't have those shadows, but there'll be a lot more of what we call noise or grain in the photograph, and that's that doesn't help with the quality of the picture, especially if anybody tries to zoom in at all. Then the quality is going to it's just going to get lost. So and that's specifically because when you're just using the room light, your camera sensor, whether it's your phone or if it's an expensive, say, professional camera, the camera sensor has to work harder to gather that light that's when there's less of it. So, and that sensor working harder creates grain, and you see that in the photograph. When there's a lot more light, the sensor doesn't have to work as hard, so the pictures come out clear. It doesn't have to put as much processing in the photograph. So that's why the more light you can get on the subject, the better the photographs are going to come out to be. But another very important thing there's a lot of other factors, but one other factor to think about is the more light you get, the quality of the photographs will get better, but also where you place the lights. I noticed, at least in one of the pictures I saw on your Facebook page, the one picture of the product shot that I saw, it did look like, to me, like the light was coming from right in front of it. Like you had the lights almost next to the camera. It almost mimicked on-camera flash almost identically, and on-camera flash is not flattering as far as photography. And what I mean by on-camera flash is, I'm only going, like, you may already know exactly what I mean by on-camera flash, but I'm only gonna, just in case you don't, I'm just saying, basically when the flash that's on the camera is used, the light is coming from directly from pretty much right above the lens or directly from the camera. It's a small light source, so it's tries to put out a lot of light, and it ends up being really bright and just unflattering. That's why you'll see photographers will get the lights off the camera and away, you know, either side of the camera, 45 degrees, things like that. So because that creates like a little bit more of a flattering light. So you have umbrellas that you're using the cameras, the lights in. You have umbrellas pretty much like this that you're using the lights in. You have the lights shooting into the umbrella, which is good because it's a bright light. When you're shooting into this fabric, it's coming out of the other side and it's diffusing a bit, but it's still basically like a direct light. This fabric is a little transparent. The light goes through this, diffuses it, or another way of saying that, it just kind of, you know, reduces some of that light, softens it slightly. But the fact that, you know, if you're aiming it right at the subject, the light's coming right through it, so you are putting a little layer of kind of like something to kind of soften the light a little bit, but it's still directly aiming at the subject, and that's why your clothing looks a little like on camera flash, because it's still like a bright light aiming right at it. I'm not sure, because you said you borrowed this kit, if there's another kit that, or when your kit comes, or if you know this about the kit that you borrowed, if it came with any kind of umbrellas that were not transparent like that, that basically you can't see through this. And the reason why I'm saying that is because say if you took your lights and you put them on this, aiming the light into the umbrella, but basically like aiming the back of the lights towards the clothing. If you know, bear with me. Hopefully you can picture this. You're aiming the lights into the umbrella, but then you're going to aim the back of the lights towards the clothing. So what's going to happen is the light's going to come out of the light bulb, hit the umbrella, and then bounce backwards towards the clothing that you're taking photos of, and that is going to soften the light a lot more, and the little bit softer light's going to hit the clothes, and I want to say be a little bit more flattering for the clothes, but it's going to soften the shadows that you're getting, and it's going to be a little bit more pleasing than what you're getting by using the transparent umbrella. This is kind of a softbox that I got off Amazon years ago, and it's one of those kind of cheap ones. I don't throw it around, and because I know that there's the kind of cheaper photography equipment on Amazon. You know, they're good price to get into that equipment and learn, but I also know that if you kind of throw it around, it's not going to last as long. But if I show you the inside, you can see that this is a light where the light bulbs, the continuous light bulbs, are aiming into the softbox, which is basically like a square umbrella, and the light comes out of the bulbs, hits the box, and bounces back towards the subject. The softbox itself also has this kind of soft diffuser. The soft material is basically like a very, very slightly transparent, material. So when I put this in front, now the light's not only hitting the back, bouncing forward, getting softened a little bit that way, but it's also going through this material, which is softening it a little bit more. So now when it hits my subject, or whatever, if it's a clothes or whatever it might be, it's going to be a little bit more flattering. I use these for video. Right now I've got one that's very close to me, and too close that I would use for video, but I wanted to show you, if you can hopefully see, I am standing here and I've got no other lights on in the room. You can see the shadow on my cheek. I don't have that fabric on yet, but when I put the fabric on right now, you're going to see that the shadows and even a lot of the shine that's on my face is just going to soften a little bit, and it's going to get a little bit more pleasing, a little bit more flattering. So here's with it. So you can see the shadow's a little bit softer, shadow coming across my forehead's a little bit softer, and I don't have as kind of that harsher highlight. If I was going to go try to do a little bit more, make it a little bit nicer, I would step it back a little bit, and then you can see I've got even softer shadows. So the point I want you to take away from that is, it's good that you're putting the light in an umbrella, but by aiming the lights in toward the direction of the subject, it's softening a little bit through here, but it's still a very bright light coming out of the subject, and that's why your pictures kind of look like they've got a lot of light thrown at it. Which you should have a lot of light, but maybe pull the lights back a few feet away. Move them to the left and to the right of the subject. Don't have them maybe directly next to the camera. You can see that right now. If I take this down, which is I just took the diffusion off, the light is basically off to the side. If I put the light right in front of me, you can see that it's a little bit too bright. It's almost like I'm putting it directly in front of the camera. So I move the light kind of off to the side, 45 degrees, something like that. So just take your light, try. If you don't have an umbrella, or sometimes those kits won't come with more than one umbrella, but they'll come with maybe like a cover that goes over the sky. But if not, either one of those, just try this. Try, instead of having your light aiming at the subject going through it, still put it in there like this, but turn it around and still have the back of it aiming at your subject. Your light's going to go into the umbrella because it's going to be transparent. A lot of it is going to be lost going through it, but some of it will bounce backwards and hit your subject. If you have two lights, that might help. One other thing before I stop the video and not make it too long is it's good that you have a lot of light. After you try moving the light from maybe a little bit more to the left, maybe one to the left a little bit more, one to the right a little bit more, bring them up a little bit more. You don't want to go too high, but maybe bring them up a little bit more. Angle them, bring them up and angle them down. You have to realize that you have your clothing hanging on the wall. The brighter the light in any situation, if you're closer to the wall, you're going to get a shadow. But as you move further away, it's going to reduce the shadow. So by you hanging your clothing on the wall and then you're getting light on it, it's going to create shadows. Your pictures may have not had any shadows when you were using the room lights, but now you have much less light and the sensor has to work harder. So it's in photography, this is what we essentially not deal with, but we think about. There's not really too many ways to reduce that shadow unless you try to either soften the light, pull the lights back a little bit, and those are really the only two ways to try to reduce the shadow by keeping the clothing hanging on the wall, is to try to change the placement of the lights. To see, if you watch the shadow as you move the lights, you'll see that the shadow moves. So see if you can just maybe move both of those shadows, basically trial and error. Move this one a little bit, move that one a little bit. Look on your camera or your phone. See if you can just find a way to maybe almost hide the shadows, because lights may be coming from two different directions. And then, like I said, try to soften it. You can also try. I bought this material from Joann Fabrics, I think. It's basically like the material that's on here. It's a transparent. You can see light shines through it, but it softens it. So I'm not necessarily sure exactly what it's called, but I got it from Joann Fabrics. It's a huge sheet. It wasn't expensive, and I got it because I took one of these and put it in another softbox I have, because I wanted the lights to go through this and the outside cover to soften it even more. So if you say you try to turn the idea of turning this around and too much light goes through, then turn it back around, have the light bulbs in here aiming at the subject again, but maybe try to pick up some of this fabric from Joann Fabrics or Michaels maybe, and put it over the front. Cut it to size, of course, and put it over the front. So now it's got 2 levels of diffusion, which is going to soften the light even more. That, in conjunction with moving your lights a little bit more to the left and the right, maybe a little bit further back, they're going to help you reduce those shadows. But basically, just keep in mind, think about the pictures that maybe you take outside during the day, just of maybe not clothing stuff, maybe family photos you take outside during the day with your phone or any other camera, and then the pictures maybe you take inside, and you notice how the quality just gets a little, it gets a little worse, the quality, and that's because your camera sensor has to work harder to collect the light than when it does when it's outside on a nice day. We in this camera and other cameras there's a thing called a shutter, and when you're outside and it's bright, the camera doesn't have to work as hard. A lot more light can get into the camera, so the shutter can be fast, which is basically like an opening and closing, like letting light in, shutting light out. That's the shutter, letting light in, shutting light out. The faster that can be, the less you're going to get any kind of shake in the camera, and that means basically the less little bit of blurriness you're going to get. If you're inside with a phone or even a professional camera, if I take a picture inside with this thing and this shutter's too slow, as in like it opens up and lets a little bit of light in and then tries to get more and then shuts it, and I'm holding it, it's going to get that little bit of shake. It's the same for the phone. So basically, you have to expect shadow when your clothing is that close to the wall with lights that close. Try to get either the material to diffuse it, see if it comes with an umbrella that isn't transparent, so you can aim the light inside and have it bounce back out and soften it, something like that. So like I said, I'm going to try to look at more of your comments to see if hopefully I covered everything in here. I know I didn't cover any of the camera settings in here, your smartphone settings for whichever camera app you're using, but I'm going to read a little bit more of the comments, and then I'm going to do another video where I kind of point out some of the camera settings to use in whichever camera app that you're using to hopefully help your photographs of your clothing a little bit better. And also, so if there's anything I missed or you'd like to know a little bit more detail about, just let me know in the comments, and hopefully this is helpful. Okay.